Over BigBear.AI. It's a stock that is in AI defense and has had a lot of momentum over the last few months. Not momentum in that we're chasing hype as much as we're looking at some of the developments in AI. Now, one of the things that we talk about all the time is every new development in technology is, if it's of integrity, going to simply make things get done better. You could look at the calculator, you could look at the computer, and that the human mind is the ultimate tool that you have, and that we are building our faculties of being able to process, let's say, a lot of computations. That's in our human mind. But what happens is, when we get to a point of having to process very large computations that otherwise might be difficult for a human, AI comes in and can make things better. And that's where BigBear.AI comes in. Now, there's one controversial take on the stock that I've been getting some questions about that I want to cover. And the first, I guess, solution oriented, we could start with the positive, is that this is a company specializing in this biometric scanning, that they deploy these types of systems at the major airports and the ports of entry, along with at certain events and even directly to the airlines. So BigBear.AI, they specialize in mission-ready AI for rapidly evolving world. They work in the Department of Defense, and they also work in Homeland Security. They have some contracts with the Navy, with the Pentagon, with the uh, Department of Defense, and they have a specialization in this digital, I guess, identity management, where they have this True Face. It's a technology that is able to scan your face, and it is the very scan here that you might have seen these threat detectors at the airports. So Big Bear is developing technology like that, and also even some aerial technology for, as you would imagine, in investigations or being able to identify threats. Nowadays, with satellite imaging, things have become very good, and most issues can be solved fairly quickly or be identified and verified very quickly with satellite imaging. And so they have this very scan technology. Now, I guess the good news of what we're seeing is that it saves a lot of time for TSA. A TSA agent, let's say you or I are working as a TSA agent, or let's just say we're going through the airport. We were recently flying through in and out of the country, my wife and I, and we went to beautiful country of Argentina, where she's from, and we flew back into the United States. And as we were coming through the port of entries in Miami, there was a TSA agent, and the TSA agent was asking many questions. He was asking, where are you coming from? Where are you traveling from? Where was your last flight? When are you planning to travel again? Who are you traveling with? What's the purpose of your traveling? How long do you plan to stay? These are some things that, while a TSA agent could ask, they're having to draw a new calculation and think of all of the possibilities or potential threats with thousands of people every single day. And so that's where this technology comes in. It's an AI, large language model, that has threat detection and can essentially do biometric vision to deliver fast, accurate, and secure identity authentication, enhancing convenience, operational efficiency, and efficacy. Now, of course, it has to be of integrity, and has to be aligned with the true facts of what that person has going on, or things. Otherwise, technology could get out of hand. And that's one of the concerns, as you might have gone through TSA recently. So there's this recent .gov article from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, where they mentioned that they're looking for example, reducing reliance on manual labor for TSA, incorporate AI-driven threat detection and remote screening, improve the passenger satisfaction. I mean, you or I, how much do we really like getting patted down and asked a lot of questions from TSA? How do we like that they probe and ask us a ton of questions about what we're doing, where we're going, things like that? There could be a passenger satisfaction there if you just simply get scanned, and that's is able to essentially do the heavy weight of that personal experience for you, so you don't have to put someone else, or a TSA agent has to go through that with you. So increase adaptability during surge events or staffing constraints as well. So it's obvious the TSA is looking for this, and this is where the concern comes in. A lot of people say, I just don't want to get my face scanned, or I don't want to have my biometric scan there, where they have a camera of my face when I'm going through, and they say, and you can tell the TSA, no, I do not want to be scanned. Do not scan my face, or do not take my picture as I'm walking through security. But the reality is we live in a digital world. And look, if that's what you want to do, by all means, all power to you. But I have this uncle who was a colonel in the military at one point. And again, I wasn't in the military. I was fairly far from it, but I have an uncle who really helped get me into investing, actually, when I was really young. He helped me open up a Roth IRA when I was 18 years old. He went to college and ended up getting into the Marines, and he was offered to do a lot of very advanced training. He was in Iraq, he was in Pakistan, and Iran, and basically was very deep in the military. And what I know about him, and I'm not going to mention his name because he wouldn't want me to, but he has no footprints online. You couldn't find him. You could find maybe an abbreviation of his name on LinkedIn, but he uses apps where you can't track. And if I want to text him, I can't send him a regular text. I got to go through to a different encrypted app called Signal, which is a pretty good app for those things. And in order to have that conversation with him, he's very hidden in how he operates. And so he told me a long time ago, he said, make sure you use this thing in your hand here, this phone, as a box of knowledge. It's a box of knowledge, but don't let it be your master, and don't let it survey you, and don't let it get power over you. You can see I got a little cover here on my phone. So if I want to show the world, I can show the world. And the same thing is true on the front. I oftentimes cover my camera. Not because I'm skeptical, or I'm going through a mental health crisis where I'm worrying about every little thing, and that me making this video right now would be detrimental if the government knew. I mean, obviously I'm on camera. But what I'm saying is, as you get to the airport, you're going to get your face scanned. They have already seen your face hundreds of times if you're getting up to the TSA. And so to be worried about a biometric scanner in this case really doesn't do you much good, because it's already covered. You've been seen from 360 degrees, and as long as you got a smartphone on you, there's really no difference in opting out of a biometric scanner at the airport. Just something to consider. Now, with that being said, you have your own liberty if you want to. By all means, that's why they have it as an option, whether you want to do it. So we're taking a look at some of the movements with BigBear.AI. A lot of times what happens is the market pulls back, and then we see some rallies that sometimes almost feel unexpected because they happen so quickly after a big pullback. And it happens when the quantum market pulled back. It happened when the greater market pulled back at the beginning of the year and everything rallied. That's part of why we were able to make a few trades that were over about 30%, about 5 of them or 6 of them over about 30% return on investment. But now we see the market do a little bit of correction, and part of the reason why is different economic indicators, market indicators. You got the Fed, you have maybe printing of money, you have the job reports, volatile, things like that. But really what we're looking at here is going to be a verification of the value provided to the marketplace. So with BigBear, there's a lot of earnings we got coming up. In fact, I was just putting together the earnings and targets for this week. We have some quantum companies. We've had some aviation companies reporting this week, like Joby. You have AMD reporting this week, which is very exciting as we're pretty heavily invested in them. Supermicro Computer. You have On Semiconductors. You have Uber reporting this week. D-Wave and IONQ, so some of the top quantum companies. FUBU, so you get an idea of the entertainment industry, and Sony with electronics. But even with all those reports, we've also had some pretty good indication into some growth in tech as a result of some value creation recently. So while the market could pull back and we could see some of that extend, we're really looking for what is potentially a validation here on BigBear.AI around $6 a share. So we started covering them back in October. We saw them volatile, very volatile in their run up to $10.50 by February. They sold off from February down into this April. In April, they found their bottom around $2.30 from that $10.50 price point. And then from $2.30 continued to rally all the way up until about $8.72 a share, which, by the way, what an awesome thing is that we were able to give StockMate away for free as a result. So one of our excellent programs where we go live every morning for about 30 minutes, where you could see our trading, investing, and get market overviews. If you had gotten into StockMate during the sale, then you would have gotten StockMate for free, get a complete refund of the money for enrolling in lifetime access, and keep your free t-shirt. And we were able to actually do that and get a numerous amount of people actually free access to StockMate, which is excellent. And the reason we're able to do that is because I have calls on the company. And so I was able to make some money as a result of our investment, and your investment in StockMate also paid the dividend. So we actually have a sale similar right now, and we're looking for a potential bounce here at $6. By August 11th, which is the day that they report earnings, which as we know could be very volatile, if they hit $9 a share, so right above here, $9 a share by August 11th, then you get StockMate for free. So right now it is consolidating from left to right. Overall, the market cap is building, but we see it consolidate from left to right. And then in that consolidation, it's recently been downtrending a little bit and trying to find support here around the $6 price point. So a couple things to watch as we get into Monday. We want to see it hit or hold that $6 price point that we've seen it bounce a few times back in early July, back in June. It's also been a resistance level here back in February. And we want to see it hold that $6 range. If it holds that $6 range, the bullish target that we're looking for is to the top of this overall trend that we see developing, which is about $7 a share or $6.80 here. Now, if we get a breakout and it can get some momentum ahead of their earnings, then we're looking for really a target of up here into this $7 to $9 range. And that's why we have the sale for StockMate. So again, without mentioning again, if you want to get for free and get a full refund of lifetime access, and you already planned on enrolling in our lifetime access, I would love to see you there at Market Open on Monday, tomorrow morning. And it's the second link in the description down below. Now, this is the move we'll watch. $6 price point, looking for a push into $7 a share. If it can't hold $6, then that's when we start to see this next level of potential validation down to about $5.50 a share. But we're looking for a hold there and maybe a continuation in this consolidation and starting to see some more institutional interest kick in. One thing to note is we have a lot of increased positions from big banks and institutions, with definitely AE Industrials leading the way with 63 million shares. And then you got BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Goldman Sachs investing heavily into the company. And again, 185 increased positions with decreased positions about 49, which indicates a lot of bullish momentum for the company. Now, why we're looking for that $11 price point is because we have their earnings coming out here on the 11th. Their revenue's been really good, around 30 million to 50 million a quarter, and their revenue has been increasing year over year. And you see a negative net income there in 2024. Part of what they did to clean that up was they paid down their debt. So we're looking at an increased revenue and really looking for a target of about 50 million in revenue in the next quarter, which would put them into a good spot. And then the balance sheet is also, again, they cleaned it up, they paid down the debt, so it looks good. So why would their earnings maybe come in at 50 million? One of the big things we'd watch is that they get more contracts. Their CEO was previously in the Department of Homeland Security and also the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's Kevin McAleenan. Now, a lot of people don't always give the CEOs enough credit, but usually the CEOs are the deal makers. The CEOs are the people who make the deals, find the deals, source the deals, and then the rest of the team usually are the ones that can execute on the big vision that has been set forth. Now, not always, like there's definitely going to be instances where the facilitation of the deal comes from other sides, but what we commonly find in the smaller companies is their biggest deals usually rely on some connection that the CEO has. So because he was previously the commissioner there of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, what we've seen with some of that recent contracts, they were able to secure a $160 million contract with the Army towards the end or towards the beginning of this year. And then they also were able to deploy pretty aggressively into a lot of airports, including Charlotte, Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver International Airport, John F. Kennedy, Los Angeles, and Montreal, Port of Seattle, Vancouver, with these biometrics. So we'll be watching them closely to see how things happen and kind of progress this week. As I mentioned, I have some call options, and that's going to be the focus for Monday in AI. Later today, we'll do a Sunday stock talk where we will go over some of the top earnings projections for this week, what we're kind of looking at, different companies in AI, quantum, space tech, and more. If you want to stay tuned for that, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to join us in our daily live session tomorrow morning at Market Open, again, it's the second link below for StockMate. Would love to see you there. When it comes to some of the developments we're seeing, I just wanted to end the day here. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you all, with some overviews of the comments. So let me take a look at the live chat. No Biggie says, hey, Will, what's going on? Always, it's great to see familiar faces. Hello from Norway. It's amazing that we have people like you in Norway. I just got off the phone of one of our recent members that was joining Mercatus, which is our new tool that allows you to streamline your research and get some projections of different companies via AI, in this case OpenAI, and we're adding new models. And I was just getting off the phone with Stein, and he's from Netherlands actually. And it's always shocking to see how far the YouTube channel reaches, especially I've noticed in London and Singapore, definitely Los Angeles and New York, but it's just so cool. So shout out back there to Norway. Shadow Hong says, sup Will? Hey man, love the emojis. And I love the profile picture there. It's a nice little photo of NVIDIA CEO. Valley says, hey Will, hey, happy to have you here. Truth, hey, what's up? The Nature Creator says, any good news on BBAI? Or will Trump send this down to $3 next week? Well, Trump doesn't send anything anywhere. Is there any good news? I mean, they got their earnings approaching in the next week or so. People say, I know it's very common that people think it's Trump, but and obviously there is a lot of sporadic comments from Trump. But ultimately, it's whether or not the institutions or the retailers decide to sell or decide to buy that will drive the market. I mean, sometimes there's been very, very negative news coming from any president that's ever been in office, and for some reason, Wall Street, buys, and that becomes the positive sentiment. Truth or spoof? Aftermarket on BBAI is even, and I'm waiting for Monday late. Love it. Thanks for tuning in. Pablo says, are you up or down on this position? Right now, I think we're up on this position. We ended up entering it on Friday, and we entered it here right around market open. And we saw a really nice surge from about $6 a share up to about $6.45. So things are going so far so good. And again, like that's why we're having the sale. It ends tonight for if StockMate hits that, or if you get StockMate for free, you get a refund. If you enroll today only, or it's been going for the whole weekend, but today is the final day that you could get StockMate for free. I have call options. That's why we're able to offer that free thing if BBAI hits the target. Yeah. Dan says, what are your opinions on CRNT and Rich Tech Robotics? Both companies are doing good things. CRNT works in 5G, which is definitely in demand. Rich Tech Robotics works in robotics. They have lots of different robotics companies. CRNT has really great financials and seems to be really intrinsically valuable. Rich Tech Robotics has very poor financials with pretty high liabilities and very increasingly negative net income. So Rich Tech Robotics is at a much higher risk there. Dan, hopefully that's helpful. Choices: BigBear.AI. Let's go. All right. Appreciate it. He says thumbs up to the stream. If you choose to, it does help people reach, or it does help the content reach people. Jason says, Will, just be more convincing and encourage buyers to go all in on Monday. No, I would never tell people what to buy, when to buy. I have no desire to convince people to make a buying decision or a selling decision. You know, I'm here to help people uncover the truth and ultimately help them learn how to think for themselves, because that will be the greatest asset that they can buy is into themselves and how to think, right? Songlang says the nature creator earning bad. Okay. JJ Lent here in the chat. The few companies that stayed green, BBAI. Yeah, it's funny, right? They were actually at the top. You see NVIDIA and Tesla at the top, but those aren't NVIDIA and Tesla. Those are the inverses of NVIDIA and Tesla. Yeah, you can see BBAI is there at the top. Then you got, let's see. Jason says, StockMate. What is StockMate? Jason, I'll answer that question for you here. So StockMate is our daily live trading. I go live there at market open. You get an email in your inbox about 15 minutes before. It's private. It's separate from here just on YouTube. It's our own private session. It is a private session on YouTube, but it's only available to people in StockMate. StockMate gives you can learn technical analysis, fundamental analysis. We release earnings and targets for all the stocks every Sunday, and when the companies are reporting, either pre-market or after hours throughout the week. And you also get to surround yourself with other like-minded individuals inside of StockMate. And as of recent study, we have just a little bit over 24 millionaires inside of StockMate. So there are some very experienced and well-versed investors there with some great insights into different companies. And yeah, we go live every morning. And you also get access to a free t-shirt that I send to you anywhere in the world. Always good to get a free t-shirt, right? So again, that's StockMate. If you ever want to take a look at it. We go live every morning, Monday through Friday. Not on the weekends, but Monday through Friday at market open. Stefan says, great work, Will. Appreciate you covering this. Yeah, it's always helpful to know that it is appreciated. I don't do it for that, but it's definitely good to know. I mean, I have a passion to make sure that you have all the information. Some people say it can be repetitive, but the repetition also is where we are able to spot discrepancies or different changes in its pattern. So that's why we cover it so consistently. Last choice is, I also have a feeling that LUNR is going to do well again after the recent pullback. Yeah, I'm in that stock as well. They recently signed a $10 million deal. Their financials look good and their market cap's fairly small. Any companies that are on the frontier, like building infrastructure on the moon or building infrastructure on Mars, are really interesting to me. Because, you know, a while back I was living, my best friend that I've had since second grade, we've grown apart now because we both, you know, live in totally different parts of the country, but we oftentimes could call each other and catch up very quickly. But he and I started investing in Tesla fairly early on in middle school, and also Rocket Lab around $3 a share. And he introduced me to space tech when I lived with him with my wife about a couple of years ago. For 2 years, we lived together in Boulder, Colorado. I was working at a financial institution there, and he was working at a space company. And we ended up basically very heavily researching space tech stocks, and he now works for Rocket Lab. So that's kind of what got me into the space tech. Roy Lee says, how do you guys see BBAI end of year realistically? It really depends. If they're able to secure some more contracts and get into that $50 to $100 million revenue per quarter, be quite likely to see them into that $5 to $10 billion market cap, which currently they're about 2 or 3 billion. So by a price standpoint, that would put them probably around $10 to $20, maybe $30 a share if those things continue to hold up. But again, they do have to come in with the good earnings here. Yeah. Do we know when that TSA After Dark says, do we know when the TSA contract for 5.5 billion will be awarded? We do not. Johnny Daniel says, what up? What's up, Johnny? Ricky G, do we pump or dump in the morning? Well, Ricky, we don't pump or dump. You know, we invest or we trade with a plan. And we can not determine whether or not BlackRock or any other company decides to sell or buy in the morning. We can only execute our plan and find value that would attract institutions most likely, or get out before them. Nick says, back from Florida. Miss you, Will. So happy to start hearing you again. Hey, Nick. Happy to have you here, man. You're back from Florida, or you live in Florida, or you're back in Florida? Florida's a beautiful place. I lived there for a couple months in 2024. I guess that was last year. Yeah, from May until August or July. Not too long. But I'm feeling drawn to Fort Lauderdale recently. All the way here. Okay. Is that West Pensacola Beach, Florida? Is that WPB? Is that West Pensacola Beach? Not really sure. Where the president messes up the traffic every time he goes to Mar-a-Lago. Got it. Yeah, I guess that's good for economy, bad for time management if you hit the traffic, right? Where do you guys see BBAI by the end of the year? Okay, so we got that. Awesome. Van Man. Good to see you, Van. Congrats, Van Man, on getting into StockMate this past week. Had some really good insights from some good investors. I saw Van get into StockMate. It's been really exciting. Francesco Santos says, hi all. Hi, Francesco. Thomas, thoughts on CTM, please? CTM stock is having really good financials. They are now holding above $1 a share, which is great, as they were well below that a while ago. But their market cap's small, around $100 million there, Thomas. And their main contract that was a big catalyst for them was a $100 million contract they got back a couple months ago. And that was great. It's increased their revenue. Their financials have looked good. But it was a contract that we have to pay attention to. It's like, imagine I decide to start a marketing company, okay? And imagine the first company that I go to do the marketing. I mean, you guys know this. Like, imagine you're doing a fundraiser. I've done this, actually. You're doing a fundraiser. How many of you have done a fundraiser when you were kids at some time, and the first person that you call is your grandma, because you know that your grandma's going to buy? Or the first person you call is that relative, that person that you know, they got you. They're gonna buy the fundraiser. How many of you guys have been there? Now, that's good. But then immediately after securing that, and you get your excitement and you tell your friends, and you know that you got some money for your fundraiser, what's next? Well, there's a whole nother mountain in order to keep that fundraiser or hit your goal. Maybe you got that initial secured, but now you got to actually go talk to people. You got to maybe knock on some doors, some things like that. Same thing with CTM. CTM, the previous workplace of their CEO, Glenn Ives, was in the Navy. The first contract that they get when he becomes CEO is with the Navy for this air systems. They do cybersecurity, software development, a little bit of AI as well, and processing large amounts of data for the U.S. government, right? And they went to the Navy and got that contract, $100 million, excellent contract for what is a company that has under $100 million market cap. So great contract. However, since then, Thomas, we haven't seen new contracts. So the question is, was that Navy contract grandma? Get what I'm saying? So he's able to go to the previous employer, secure the contract. Now with this, where the real work starts to be required for CTM to continue to grow? Can they get some more contracts that are not just the previous employer of the CEO? That's where CTM is at right now in order to continue that value build to really push them into that $500 million market cap or above. Hopefully that makes sense. Jose says, hi, Will, SoFi and Black Sky. SoFi came in with some great earnings. Looked like they started to keep things rolling. Their PE ratio still a little high right now. Black Sky, same deal. We have a position there. They've had some good earnings, some good revenue, and they're partnered with Rocket Lab. Black Sky has excellent satellites that have really high definition imagery that is being used by the Department of Defense and other international contracts. Even I think in the UAE, they're working with some companies, and they're getting their satellites up there. They're Gen 3 satellites. So when it comes to Black Sky's future, long term looks really good. Short term, they're at some key levels right now, but there's definitely some volatility happening with Black Sky. Let's see where they are right now. Yeah, it looks like they're trying to hold this level around $18 a share and continue back up into that level of $22. Otherwise, they could sell back down maybe into that $13, $10 range. But ultimately, long term looks good. Trying to see if they can continue that momentum into $22 or above. We'll just keep a close eye on it. See maybe if they can kind of keep this $18 range here. It's kind of a previous resistance as well. They've had an overall uptrend, but recently kind of pushed below that 200-day moving average. So that's going to be the focus for them. Great, guys. Well, I see Leo here. I see Leo, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. You got Dealer is here. Russ says, thanks for everything. Still patiently waiting for Planet Labs to get some love from you. We're on the same page there, Russ. You know, what happened? Every new member of StockMates, where we go live every morning, that joins, I give them a call. Now, sometimes they don't answer because they see a California number and they're in another state and they're like, what's this guy doing? Or what is this, you know? Maybe I get numbers like that all the time and I, you know, just hang up immediately if I know I wouldn't know that person. But sometimes people answer, and I just was driving to the gym 2 days ago. It was a late night. It must have been, 8 p.m. Sometimes we get in there real late, but it's a non-negotiable. And I'm pulling up and I give a call to a new stockmate. And this gentleman is in the Bay Area, and I'm asking, as I ask questions to see where he's at and his portfolios, and I find that he works at Planet Lab actually. And we have people that work at Planet Labs that it's amazing some of the companies that actually have employees that are in StockMate. There's another L3 Harris gentleman that I just talked to last week. But anyway, Planet Labs. And we had some conversations about it, and I was thinking that's one I'd like to cover more. So Russ will definitely cover that one, as they have some pretty high-tech space satellites there. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Steven says West Palm Beach. Okay, there you go. So it wasn't the Pensacola Beach. Got it. Okay. Yeah, so we got some earnings coming up. Clayton says, hello, Will, it's Sunday, APLD. Love that. Yeah, APLD. APLD is data center driven, and they have some really good partnerships. Anytime, one of the things when Tesla was getting a lot of hype back in 2019, I was really eager to know who's providing the tech for Tesla and also Apple, who's providing the microchips for Apple that helps them run their iPhones. And the answer was NVIDIA. And then that really led me down to find a really nice investment there with NVIDIA in that 2019, 2020 era right there. And there was a gentleman who was saying, we were covering some stocks, and he said, well, you're covering NVIDIA and you're covering some other stocks like NVIDIA, but I can't believe you're not covering APLD, because they're building the data centers for NVIDIA. And it brought me back to that thing. I was like, oh, that's exactly what we did to find NVIDIA. So we looked at the big companies, all the attention. We said, what companies are supplying for them? Oh, it's Taiwan Semiconductor. It's blah, blah, blah. And so when you look at NVIDIA, if you reverse engineer and you go back, okay, what companies are making it possible for NVIDIA to work, for Intel to work, for, you know, what's the other one? Hewlett Packard or Dell to be able to build their data centers, or AMD. And then you find APLD. And APLD builds the data centers in a way that is efficient with some of the most innovative technology or generation of energy known right now. We have hydroelectric, there's wind turbines, they do solar, and they also even choose cold climate areas um, to minimize the heat impact, and they have liquid cooling as well. So, when it comes to APLD, Clayton, it's a nice long-term play. Near term, we saw them have a really nice earnings, pump about 30% there, which was excellent for us and also some members inside of StockMate and people here on YouTube. We actually have a position with them right now that we're up about 31% right now. And that's just in the last week. So I would say short term, they have some volatility happening, but long term, that's what we're seeing. They're one of those emerging market companies. And that's something we talk about time and time again, is like, we're not looking for a pump. We're not looking for hype. We're looking for the companies that eventually the market says, oh, whoa, whoa, hold up. This here is something that's powering a greater value in the market. This is where everybody needs to go. And we're already well positioned in those investments. It's a beautiful time to look at companies like that. It's not secret information. You just have to look in the right way, Thomas says, do you think BBAI earnings will be a lot better, judging that they said the last time a lot of their contracts weren't priced in the last earnings? What do you think of this time? Thomas, I think that's a great point. When it comes to BBAI, they not only announced a lot more deployments of their biometrics into new airports and ports of entry, but they also those are contracts that could potentially reflect in their earnings, along with their already continual contracts they have with some other companies, Department of Defense, Pentagon, Army, Navy. Yeah, they also said in the last earnings, they said some of the contracts that we have, we were expecting payment and it hasn't hit our bank account yet, so we can't count that as earnings. That's basically what they said. It is hard to say because they didn't specify the amounts. I would imagine they wouldn't have mentioned it unless it was fairly significant. If it was just a few $1,000s, I don't think they would mention it. If it was in the millions of dollars, that's probably why they would say something like that. And we also did see them drop in the revenue by about $5 to $10 million. So I think, yeah, it could be significant. We could see a little bit of a boost in the next earnings. But that's the beautiful thing about earnings. I mean, we can actually kind of reverse engineer and say, what did we see happen? Well, it's almost inevitable they're going to see a boost in earnings, Part of that comes down to seeing the moves that they make in the quarter. And then part of that comes down to knowing the timelines on the previous contracts that they have been running, and when those contracts end, so that we know that revenue is going to dry up. And right now, there aren't any contracts that we've identified that would dry up. And then also there are contracts we've identified that they've added in the last few quarters. So most likely, that would lead us to believe that they would have good earnings. It's kind of like back around the elections, I entered a position into Robinhood stock, became very bullish. Can anybody guess why we became bullish on Robinhood? There is one instance possibly that we could say that we could believe that the reason the stock is doing well and they're making more revenue is because they're running ads with my face on it, and that I partnered with them, and that we've been doing that for the last 7 months, and we're going into another round of that here this month. But I wouldn't believe that to be true, so I'm not going to say that. What I would believe to be true is that they, right around the elections, introduced what was the betting, or a, I guess, predictive market, where you could choose whether you're investing in, or whether it was going to be the Republican Party Donald Trump that would win, or Democratic Party Kamala Harris, and that you could bet who was going to win. And just by looking at the bets and how much revenue they generated by the losing side of that, there was over about $150 million that was generated from that. And I remember seeing that and immediately thinking, oh, they're most likely going to surprise in their next earnings, because right in front of us, we could see that they were generating revenue right in front of us. And so, there are instances where you're able to see firsthand that companies are going to surprise in their earnings. And so I feel like possibly we could see a similar situation there with BBAI, and that we've been following, we've seen some of those new contracts, we've seen some of those developments, that it would make sense that they would come out with surprise earnings, you know? And again, could it be wrong? It could be. And then we'd have to verify it. But most of the time, we're right in that realm of analysis. Now, there's also here from Nicholas Go, says hello from the UK. Awesome. Yeah, I love to see it. I've never been, but would always like to go. That's awesome. Yeah. Jose says thanks, and Thomas sends $5 or $4.99 there. And you say have a cup of coffee on me. I appreciate it. I have some coffee right here in front of me, actually. And it's definitely an expense that we have at the household. So I appreciate it. Thomas says you'll probably know tonight, or have a rough idea on BBAI, and kind of the trades at this time. Yeah, we will see kind of the pre-market happen. And there's some good comments there. Russ, thoughts on Planet Labs? Russ, wish I had more. I know that they some of their satellite imaging was used in some news articles that were being sourced for getting perspectives on different events. So news articles or news outlets are now going to Planet Labs to grab some of their real-time satellite imaging to use in their news reporting from a bird's eye view, which is a very large contribution to the value of news reporting from Planet Labs. Other than that, I don't have a lot of insight into Planet Labs, as I don't have a full understanding of their financials or anything like that. But we can definitely jump into it in the future. Sergio says, please do a small review of HYLN. I would be happy to do that at some moment. Thanks so much, Sergio, for bringing that one to my attention. Yeah, I mean, as far as a review right now, we're looking to keep this one fairly short, but I could do a quick review here. What is it? HYLN. From a curiosity perspective, looks like the company has had some pumps, and they've really sold off since their IPO. So oftentimes companies like this can be very risky. See a very consistent downtrend, and recently pumped to $4 and sold down. But before we mark it off, we'll do a little bit of integrity analysis, and we'll just take a look at their financials before even getting into their product. $245 million market cap. So, Sergio, while I do definitely want to not discount if they have any products that are evolutionary or revolutionary, that's net income is going to be one of the main factors that we consider with smaller companies. As if we're already investing in something other than ourselves or our own business or things like that, we wouldn't want to personally, in how we do it, invest in anything that wouldn't be financially solid. So the way that it looks right now, Sergio, is this company has a negative net income of about 10 to 15 million a quarter, and annually they lost about $52 million with only earning about 1.5 million. If we take a look at their balance sheet, you can see over the last 4 years, their balance sheet in total assets has been declining. So you can see declining assets from 655 million all the way down and declining year over year to what is now 263, and total liabilities now at 18 million, which looks pretty relatively similar to how their stock chart looks, doesn't it? Kind of like this. So right now there'd be no indication that would put us in a position to explore the company further. Thanks for bringing it to the attention, Sergio. That's kind of that's the outlook right now. Just kind of the financial side. But if you do find something that would make a lot of sense for recovery, by all means, seems like more of a bet than it does an investment at the moment. Bandman says, notice that. I think you're referring to maybe it was it CTM? I'm not sure. Thanks for commenting there. So the other comment we see here is from Zed Estate. Zed says, I bought Leap 6 contracts with a $5 strike. Nice. Fairly conservative, looking bullish on a BBAI, which is excellent. Spin Second Serve says, BBAI is going to have a big week. ... Will said it held support. Or at least that's what I heard. Hope you have a good weekend. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to BBAI, we don't know it's going to have a big week. But we do see that it is trying to hold a support at around $6 a share, which is a key support level that we'd want it to hold in order for it to first make a run back up here, about a 5% to 7% swing into that $7 range, and potentially make that run up to $8.50 to $9 a share. Now, if it can't make that run, then most likely we could see it sell down further to that $5.50 range. But yeah, we would expect it to potentially have a good week, but that's just how things look right now. Got it. Okay. So the other comments, and we're going to be wrapping it up here, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a super fast-paced, good outlook on the stream. I appreciate you all. Spin and Serve sends another $4.99 for maybe the coffee, or there you don't say what it was for. Let's see what is most likely going to be the most use of that $4.99. Probably we'll want to get some new, well, I don't know if that's going to be Spin and Second Serve. Actually, it kind of fits the username. Some new balls, some golf balls actually that I could use, so I can keep getting some good spin on it when I serve it up off the tee. Or maybe some pickleball stuff for my wife and I. Could go towards something like that. Appreciate it. That's even more matching to your name. Appreciate it. Awesome. So we also got EB says CTM. We just did a outlook on CTM. Essentially, we're saying CTM is got good financials and things look good there. However, they've only gotten one contract the last few months that was related to their CEO's prior employment. So we're looking for them to expand and start to get into a position of really being able to get some new contracts, not just having the older contract. Well, it's a great contract, $100 million, and the company's not even worth that, or they're worth right around $100 million. It's still something we want to watch, is that they continue to build those contracts into the pipeline, and they haven't yet, but they are at a support right now, and they're holding above $1 a share, which is excellent, which we waited a long time for them to get above $1. But yeah, that's kind of how it looks right now. Theodore says, thoughts on INOD? They had a good Q2 earnings and a huge jump up. Then Friday, they had a huge sell-off. Think it could be a good opportunity? I mean, every stock, for the most part, other than BBAI, had a big, huge sell-off on Friday. If they had a good Q2 earnings, then that's good. What does a good Q2 earnings look like for you? Let's see what classified that. They got a $1.4 billion valuation. Revenues around that's a really nice financial. They got 50 million a quarter with a positive net income, and the balance sheet looks very good. $2.46 billion valuation. And we see, let's take a look at their chart right now. And I'm actually curious, so let's see. Okay, so they broke pattern along with the greater market. We were hoping they would maybe bounce here. Looks like we've even done a little bit of research. They kind of broke pattern, not anything crazy, but you do see a little bit of a break. Now maybe this is what we're looking at here. Something like this. See, is there kind of a support level? Looks like it. Previous resistance. It's kind of how you have to redraw it up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the company, but I could say the financials look fairly good. And the PE ratio just a little bit high, so possibly could sell down further. Right now, there is a support level there. They'd probably look to get up to $48 a share. Don't have a huge number of thoughts as I'm not super familiar with the company. It's kind of looking like this. Margin for profit, if they make that recovery, would be somewhere in here, about a 10% margin. 5 to 10%. Previous highs, 27%. I would set stop somewhere around that $44 range, most likely, if we were trading it. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's helpful. Don't have a lot for you there. Kurtz, won't BBAI have an earnings overrun? We shall see. We shall see. Dave Abo says, hey, is that offer for signing up and you offering a refund, is BBAI Go Big still an offer? It's the offer for BigBear.AI that if it hits the $9 share target, that you get StockMate for free, is available only for people that enroll between Saturday and Sunday night tonight. So it ends tonight at midnight Pacific time. So after that, any enrollments will be regular with our current model with the sale we have for the summer. If you get it into StockMate and you want to join our market live trading tomorrow morning in our live session, then if you enroll today before that cutoff, you get the summer sale, you get the free t-shirt, and you get enrolled into getting StockMate a full refund potential if BBAI hits that $9 target by that earnings day. So yes, it's still an offer. It's available just for the rest of today. Now, Sundays are sometimes a little bit slower days as the market's not moving, but I hope that this was, dynamic enough to get you guys some insights into the market for this week and that you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to, and I earned it, hit that like button. If you'd like to join us again in StockMate, it's the second link below. Would love to see you there. For those of you guys that would like to get the best models in the world to do future projections for different companies that you're investing in, I would encourage you to check the first link in the description for the full auto analysis masterclass. It's a masterclass on auto analysis, and it's the first link in the description. I would encourage you to simply take a look as well. Thanks so much for tuning in again, guys. I appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'll see you guys in the StockMate or the Sunday Stock Talk that we're going to be doing here in a minute. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you.